All right, what's up, Chicagoans? This is Phantology. I'm your host, Steven, and I have Ryan with me today to discuss the Dresden Files.
Yes, sir. Just caught up. Finally finished Battleground.
Yeah, you went on a crazy Dresden binge, right? Like you read all 17 plus two books of short stories in how long?
Well, I started in October, I would think. Yeah, October, and so I finished. I think to be fair, I finished in the end of February. So it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since I've finished Battleground.
Okay, you've had some time to really let it sink in, to process the
Yeah,
events. And before we talk about the books at all, we should say this is going to be a full spoilers podcast through the end
yeah.
of the Dresden Files. So if you're not that far, you probably don't want to tune in much further.
I feel a little bit, or I felt left out because you and Ben and Josh all did the Dresden Files episodes. I felt like I was just a few months behind you guys. So whenever I would listen to them, I'd be like, "Oh man, I disagree with this, or I agree with this, or whatever."
Uh-huh.
So now's my chance to voice all those thoughts.
Yeah, now's your chance to really get us back. Let us know what we missed.
Mm-hmm.
I know we made some detail mistakes in those episodes. There's a lot of details in these books, and we've only read them once, so very very probable that some mistakes are made, but
Yeah.
the tone will remain correct. I think we're just going to try to give some general ratings and comments on the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds good. Let's get into it.
All right, so before we do, if you like Phantology, you can see more at www.phantologybooks.com, and you can support us at patreon.com/phantology_books. And if you really want to support us, go on YouTube and give us a subscription on there. We're trying to get up to 1,000 so we can, turn the page on the channel, get into the monetization side.
Do we get a plaque for getting 1,000 subscribers? Probably not.
Yeah, I think YouTube sends you a plaque. Yeah,
Oh, they do. Okay. All
no,
right.
I'm joking. I
Oh,
don't think so.
I mean, have you seen the plaques that like other big subs like yeah, other big subscribers have them. But they're probably for like 100,000 or 10,000 or something like that.
No, what do they look like?
They're just like black plaques with like the YouTube play button on them that are like I think depending on how many subscribers it is, it's
Oh,
like
really?
bronze or silver or gold or
Huh.
whatever. Yeah,
Okay. Well, I was being facetious, but it sounds like it is actually a thing that I didn't know about.
definitely is a thing. Yeah.
All right, so get us to the plaque. Please subscribe on YouTube.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to start with a review of our previous review. A few months ago, we did a tier list of the Dresden Files where myself, Stephen, and Ben and Josh went through and rated all 17 books plus the two short stories. So we had 19 ratings, tiers from S tier down to A, B, C, and D tier. And Ryan is now going to react to our ratings. I don't know if you listened to this one or not, Ryan. Have you?
I don't remember it,
Okay.
so probably
Yeah.
not.
Well, it was fantastic. So go back and listen definitely. But you're going to get a recap now. So starting in book one in Stormfront,
Wait,
we get,
quick
yeah.
question. So, does this mean that the best Dresden book is at S tier and the worst Dresden book is at D tier?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So it's
It
not just like a scale of like 1 to 10 and where they rank along it. It's the top. The top is at the top. The bottom's at the bottom.
Yes, exactly.
That makes
I
sense.
mean, in general, we like most of the Dresden books. So if we were just saying like books in general, I don't think we'd put
Yeah,
hardly any of the Dresden books in D tier. But
yeah.
in the Dresden Bookiverse, right? The
Mm-hmm.
ratings from what you said
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
What was the lowest? D or
D.
D? Okay. All right.
You
Stormfront D.
you give Stormfront a D?
Yeah.
Okay, we gave it a C. We put it in C tier.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like the introduction to the series, but maybe we just kind of gave him a pass, gave Butcher a pass a little bit on the first book, but sounds like you weren't a big fan of Stormfront.
No, in fact I read it on its own a few years ago and I wasn't inspired enough by it to continue. So
Hmm.
I've actually read Stormfront twice, but only it didn't stick till the second time, I guess. And I was more committed to getting
Okay.
through it.
As we go through, I'm going to tell you guys my best and worst parts of each book. So in Stormfront, I thought the best part was just like kind of the mystery, introduction to the world, and the plot was engaging. I felt the worst part for me, I just found Morgan to be really annoying, how he never trusted Dresden with everything and was always there dogging his steps. He wasn't that was not a fun part of the plot for me. So that's
Yeah.
my takes on Stormfront, but sounds like in
Mhm.
general, Ryan was a little bit lower than we were. I mean, I think most people agree that like compared to the other Dresden books, that it gets better over time. And Stormfront was, decent
Mhm.
book, but nothing special.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for what Jim Butcher, how far he's come and what he's accomplished with the Dresden Files, especially when you think of that Stormfront was a class project for him, it's pretty incredible that he actually continued with that series and built
Mm-hmm.
what he has on it. But as far as quality, if you're considering Stormfront to the rest of the series, then it's got to be at the bottom.
Yeah. Isn't the story? So I'm probably going to get this wrong, but he was in school and he came to his professor with this idea, and it was kind of out there, urban fantasy in Chicago with the wizard. And he wasn't necessarily sure about it, but his professor was like, "This is the one. This is the winning thing, and you've got to go for this." Something like that.
Maybe I'm not exactly sure. The podcast that I listened to with him, he said that in this class he was determined to like do everything his professor said like would work, and I think his intent was kind of to show her that it wouldn't work,
Mm.
but he went through, and I guess Stormfront was the result. And I don't know if at the end she encouraged him to try and get it published, or he just said, I'm gonna see where this goes. But yeah, that's the small part of that story that I've heard.
Thank goodness for that professor.
Yeah,
Good advice. Good advice.
yeah.
Okay, Full Moon.
Full Moon. So this is the one with the werewolves,
This is
and
These are the
the
werewolves.
this is when the alphas are introduced, right?
All of the werewolves. So for me, the prose of this book was just like the werewolf destruction in general, like tearing apart the police station. While that is obviously not something that it's a little tough to see, I thought the action was awesome and really kind of like raised the stakes quite a bit. And then
Oh, and the Lou Guru.
yeah, the loop groove is what, who tore apart the police station. For me, there were too many werewolves, and I found that the plot was just like overly complex, and the whole thing with the FBI agents, it never really means anything. I mean, they try to tie it in a little bit to the overarching plot by the end, but it felt a little flat for me. So,
It's gonna
what
be
do
a
you?
C. I think it's a slight
Let's see.
improvement on Stormfront, but not too much. I still wasn't very invested in the Dresden Files after reading that book.
We gave it a D. We actually went down on Full Moon.
Okay.
We felt Full Moon was a step down from Stormfront. But let's go on to Grave Peril, book 3, where we get our vampires introduced, and Michael comes in. Those were highlights for me. Low light was I found Leah to be annoying again. The characters that just mess with Dresden and make his life hard are cons for me. I guess I mean like it's important for the plot, obviously, but I struggle with them.
Um, I think it's I think it's gonna be C tier as well. I think it's maybe a slight improvement on Full Moon, but not enough to bump it up into B territory.
Okay, so Ryan's tier list is ascending as we move up the books. We gave it a B tier, actually. We moved it
Okay.
up into the B territory, which is not bad. Okay, Summer Night is where we get our Fae introduced.
Yeah. This was a good one. I this was the first book I read that afterwards I thought like I really enjoyed this book. It's definitely going in a direction that I want to continue reading it. And so I think it belongs in the B tier.
We put it in C tier.
Oh, wow.
We've been bouncing around each other's. I mean, our average rating is probably the same thus far, but we seem to be off one or the other the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's confusing because on Goodreads, when I was reviewing these, I basically gave them a 3, 4, or 5-star rating. And the first two books were 3 stars. I think the next books are basically all 4 stars, except for a few standouts.
Mm.
But
I
this
thought
I need to dig a little bit deeper to kind of put them in different categories.
mm, that's what we're doing now. We're digging
Hmm.
deeper.
Yeah.
I thought the final battle of this one was really fun. Toot Toot was awesome. He's always awesome. The plot here was just, I mean, I feel like it was maybe a little overly convoluted with all the Fae, and there was a lot that you were being introduced to. And just Elaine being in the book. Elaine is a character that confuses me. Just kind of like wonder why is she. Seems like maybe
Definitely.
a thread that Butcher was trying to get in, and then he kind of abandoned, and is now just this loose thread that was made some half-hearted attempt at. Anyway, let's go on to Death Masks, where
So,
we finally get the Denarians.
so yeah, this was the first book with the Denarians. And is this the book where at the end of it, Harry picks up Lashiel's coin
Yeah.
to try and prevent Harry Carpenter, I think, from getting it?
Yes.
Um, so this was definitely good. I really like all the stories with Black and Denarians, like you do, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am going to move, and it also introduces Nicodemus too, who is one of the scariest villains of the Dresden Files. I'm gonna put this in the A tier.
Okay, we finally agree. We also had Death Masks in A tier.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
I love the Denarians. They're hands down the best villains. There's a lot of different villains in the Dresden First, but the Denarians are the best, and especially going forward into Battleground. I mean, Marcone becoming a
Yeah,
Denarian, that was awesome. That was
yeah. It was it was
I'm excited to see where that goes.
it was awesome in a scary way.
Right. Without a doubt. Okay. So in that book also I like the whole Shiro sacrifice thing. I thought that brought in
Oh
some kind
yeah,
of powerful emotional moments that
Shiro was a great character.
yeah. And I think this is a note that you had that you wanted to talk about, but these books, while they are like a fun urban romp through Chicago, urban fantasy romp through Chicago with a wizard, there's a lot of like really good, powerful, emotional stuff interwoven that you've got to like. It's some
Hmm.
good stuff from Butcher. So, props
Yeah,
to him for making a really nice series.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Lots of good emotional attachment to the characters.
On the downside on Death Masks, the St. Giles people never really got attached to that whole plot line.
No, that's the people that Susan belongs to, right? Like a lot of
Right.
them are half vampires who haven't fully turned yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never was super invested in them either.
Like it's not a bad idea, but I just never really cared about any of those characters.
Hmm. Yeah, I can agree.
Okay. Blood Rights is book 6. This starts when he gets Mouse, which is the
Oh
highlight of
yeah.
the book for me. And the low light of the book, I don't know if you remember this scene, but it's the infamous pants scene that we were very low on in our review, where uh, where Murphy has to like slither underneath a laser or something. I don't remember the exact details. And so in order to make it underneath, she has to remove her pants to like get the inch or whatever of difference to get under. Do you remember this?
No. Who's the main villain in this story?
Is it the death curse thing on the porno set?
That's what I was thinking. Like, so Lara would be introduced
Yeah,
here.
it is. It's
It
that one.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the majority of it. Yeah.
I still don't remember the scene very well that you're talking about.
So clearly, this is a more forgettable book for us.
Yeah.
Do you have a rating, or are we just gonna do a?
um, Well, I mean, I do remember like the introduction to Lara, and I thought it was a little bit weird that it was like Dresden's on the set of like a porn film. Um,
Yeah,
but it was like an interesting book, and it introduced us to the White Court vampires a lot more in depth, and we got to know them just a lot better from this book. So I would probably give it a B tier. Yeah, B.
really. Okay,
Hmm.
we put it in D tier.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, maybe it was a little bit more fresh for us, but I think we're struggling with book six. So okay, D tier for at
Hmm.
least back in the day it was. Okay,
Yeah.
Deadbeat. Deadbeat is more memorable. Yes?
Um, is is this the one with SplatterCon?
No. That is proven guilty. That's the next book. Deadbeat is Deadbeat is Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Kemlerites.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's where he's trying to prevent like the necromancers from
Uh-huh.
becoming
On Halloween and everything.
godlike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this book was interesting. I don't think I liked the Sue part as much as other people did. Honestly, the most memorable part of this book is at the end where um, I think it's in this book with that guy who utters a death curse against Harry. Is that this book? And he
Yeah.
says, "Die alone."
Right, right. It's
And
one of the Denarians, I believe, that he
yeah,
goes.
it's like the snake guy.
He busts, yeah, Snake Boy. He goes in and busts him with a baseball bat, I believe.
Yeah, and that's something I've been thinking a lot more about recently with Battleground, with what happens with Murphy in Battleground. So, um, but we're also introduced to Lucio, who's a pretty cool character. I like Lucio a lot.
Hmm.
And is this also the book where Harry becomes a warden for the first time?
Harry becomes a warden. Ramirez is a big part of it. I don't remember if Ramirez is introduced in this book or not.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably around the same. I'm gonna leave it in B tier.
We put it in S tier, probably
Whoa.
because I freaking love the Sue scene.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, and I
All
thought
right.
The Kemlerite thing, like that was one of the better plots that he's had
Yeah.
through books, like the necromancy that was going on. The downside for me was like all of the minor Kemlerites that were just kind of like there to move things along a bit, but the ending scene that was it was very exciting. There's a lot going on there at the end.
Riding Sue through Chicago and grave or corpse taker switching bodies
Uh-huh.
of
Uh-huh.
Lucio, and yeah, there definitely was a lot
Yeah.
of good stuff there.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't like Sue as much. That
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not sure why.
All right, all right. Okay, so next we have after Deadbeat, Proven Guilty, the SplatterCon thing with Molly.
Yeah, so this book, it's not super memorable to me, even though I remember SplatterCon. And it's like Molly is kind of I guess it is a little bit more because we learn more about how Molly has started using black
Hmm.
magic, and it's sort of, I think, reminds Harry of himself in that situation.
Yep.
And so Mouse, right off, something's wrong with Molly when Mouse growls at her, and so the rest of the book are trying to figure out exactly what it is. I I liked the book. I did not like the ending where, and and I think that this has kind of permanently tainted any Harry Molly romance for me, which is like where Molly becomes Harry's apprentice and then she like strips down thinking that she's now going to sleep with Harry. And and whenever I like try and think of Harry and Molly together, it's always going to be like, well,
Yeah.
she I think she was underage at that point, which is just a big, like, I don't think it was necessary to the story. Like, yeah, she can have kind of like a crush on Harry, but I think that was just a little bit too far, and it's tainted any Harry Molly romance idea in my mind from that point on. Anyways, I'm going a bit astray, but I think that this book is, I'm gonna put it in B tier.
So we put it in D tier.
Oh, because of that?
I think it was
Or
in part of that. Ben had a really strong negative visceral reaction at. I mean, as did you, and like as do probably most people. That was a really weird scene. And then apart from that, like it's just not super memorable. The plot kind of revolves around this mystery at SplatterCon, but it wasn't nearly. I mean, compared to Deadbeat of the S tier, right? To to follow up with this one that was just so forgettable and also had some weird things that, yeah, it was a D, man.
wow. So I put both of those in the same tier, Deadbeat and Proven Guilty in the same, and you put one in S and one in
Uh-huh.
D. That's
Uh-huh.
interesting.
Okay, next, Winter Night. Winter Night was all around kind of the White Court, and then at the end, there's the whole big showdown at the Deeps. There's this misunderstanding with Thomas throughout, like Thomas is being misconstrued to have
Oh
been
yeah.
like kidnapping these women. That was the negative thing for me. Uh, Plot lines with Thomas being misunderstood or falsely accused are just like we're beating a dead horse at this point, especially when you
Hmm.
go into. I think that's one of my issues with peace talks. It's like we've already seen this, and I'm tired of Thomas being misunderstood. Like, can we not just communicate with each other? It's frustrating to me. So Winter Night was like all right for me, but the ending was great. The rest of it, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the ending was cool where he enlists Marcone's aid and they go into the
Yeah,
deeps and he's fighting with Lara. This is actually the pretty emotional with Lash, the fragment of Lasciel in his mind, because she sacrifices himself in a psychic attack to prevent Harry from um, being,
right.
I don't know, going crazy or whatever would happen, his mind being destroyed. And that was pretty cool. I didn't see that happening. I didn't predict that. So I actually liked this book quite a bit. I do agree the beginning kind of dragged on where he was looking into all of those like weaker sorcerers, and he was investigating that. I wasn't
Mhm.
super invested in that part, but I did like the ending, and so I'm gonna put that in probably B tier
Okay,
still.
we had it in C tier,
Okay,
but it was the top of C tier. It was really close to B tier.
okay, all right.
All right, small favor, book 10. We're making some progress.
This is where Marcone gets captured, right? And um,
Yeah,
I
this is
think,
another Denarian book, right? And there's like there's
oh,
a few big set pieces. There's the one at the aquarium, and then there's one at Demon Reach, and the one at Union Station with I don't remember what creatures those were, but where Harry and
they're trying to
Michael
get
were
the
fighting them
archive
off.
to
Yes,
get
there's
become a Dark Denarian.
right, exactly.
And
And
oh,
at
this,
the end, Michael gets crippled.
yeah, this is a good one. This is definitely A tier for me. I really liked that. I thought it was really good at the end where Harry thinks that he's sacrificing himself for Michael almost, because he lets Michael go up the ladder first,
Hmm.
and then Michael gets shot as he's going up the ladder, and then Harry blames himself, I think, a little bit for that. But then Uriel tells Harry later on that if Harry had gone up first, I think Harry would have died and the whole world would have, I don't know, ended practically, because Harry wouldn't have been there to protect it.
I don't remember the details of that conversation exactly, but Jake the janitor does show
Yeah.
up and have imparts some wisdom upon Harry.
Hmm.
The negative for me, I did also have this one in A tier. I really liked it, and I feel like this is where this one turncoat and changes are almost like the beginning. Like these three have such good momentum all the way through
Yeah.
to where the plot's really starting to connect and it's becoming like this big thing. This is probably
Mhm.
where this book started to like turn the corner for me on Dresden Files, where I was like, I could see the potential this series had to be super awesome rather than just like individual.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the blasting rod thing, do you remember the blasting rod plot line?
Um
Like Mab was messing with his
oh
memory.
yeah. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they were like, Harry, can you tell us where your blasting rod is? And then Harry like gets really confused. I thought that was going to be a lot more interesting. And then it just seemed anticlimactic when we learned, oh, Mab had just taken it and erased his memory of it or something, or messed with
Yeah.
his mind.
So that was the negative for me. I
Hmm.
thought that one part of the plot was a little bit of a letdown. Okay, Turncoat. This is the one with the Naglashi, the shapeshifter. And at the end, we find out about the Grey Council. And the whole time, it's like this Lafortier guy was killed. Who did it? That was the negative for me because like I don't care about this Lafortier guy. But the rest of the plot was pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan comes to Harry's help or
Yes.
comes to ask for Harry's help, which is the last person you'd expect. It certainly starts in an interesting way. It was funny. I saw a meme of this story that was like, whenever Harry leaves, he comes back, and it's like The Office. It's where like Michael, Creed, and Dwight or somebody, they're all like pointing their finger guns at each other, and
Uh-huh.
it's like Molly, Morgan, and Mouse are all like, whenever Harry leaves and comes back, they're always like at each other's throats, and Morgan's like, oh, she's trying to enter my, like
Uh-huh.
Morgan and Molly are about to kill each other, and Mouse is just trying to keep everybody alive.
It happens at least a couple times, maybe three
Yeah,
times. Yeah.
yeah, it does. It does. Um, so this was pretty interesting, and you come to find out one of the more interesting plot lines to me was that Lucio's mind had been messed with as well, and that she was only like,
Hmm.
her romance with Harry was kind of like she was forced into it, and so she
Yeah.
had been she was like hesitant to continue from then on, which reminds you, die alone, Harry. Every romance he has kind of failed
Yeah.
in
I
various
mean,
ways.
the one with Murphy is great until she, battleground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this book in A tier.
Also had it in A tier. Okay, changes. This one is I think pretty well regarded, like universally. I had it in S tier. For some reason, Ben continues to fight against changes. He thinks that Harry's daughter is used as like plot device, and we're like, no, dude, she's his daughter. Like it happens, but I don't know. We don't need to rehash that discussion. It's gone on our Discord a little bit. But
Yeah,
how'd you like changes?
I liked it. I didn't think it was like amazing. I think it's good. I think it's A tier. The big thing about changes is that at the end of the book, the Red Court amasses all of this power, like this loaded gun that could potentially be turned against themselves. I mean, I guess that's so out of their thoughts that how could this be turned? Like, we're going to use this to kill Harry and all of his line, get revenge
Right,
on them.
right.
But the fact that they just leave this gun cocked and loaded and for anybody to take advantage of it, which Harry does at the end, is just so mind-boggling to me. I don't think that if I was an evil red court vampire who had lived for centuries or millennia, I would even take the chance of something so powerful being used against me.
So you have the red cord indeed here.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it was a huge miscalculation on their part. Harry's able to take advantage. I mean, this book was good. This is my favorite book. Maybe not my absolute favorite. I think Cold Days was better for me, but there were just so many changes, right? It
Hmm.
really, the series needed it. And I think it was a bold decision from Butcher to do this because he could have kind of kept on going, but he's like, this is where he takes it into more of like an epic fantasy. I mean, I know it's still urban fantasy, but everything is connecting in such a big way that it's almost more of an epic fantasy at this point. And Changes was the reason why. Changes is this transitional period.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I like pretty much all of the changes that this enacts on Harry, getting rid of his house or his apartment and his car and giving him a daughter. It really steps up his sense of responsibility and pushes out of the habits that he's been stuck in, and also sets up um, the next few books in big ways, both with Harry's assassination attempt, with him going to Mab and finally agreeing to become the Winter Knight, just all of these things that shape the next few books. So I think it's definitely a good book, but I'm not quite ready to put it in S tier.
So if I'm counting here correctly, you have not put any in S tier yet, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. We'll see if we can get any up there. One underrated part of Changes is like the formation of the Fellowship when they go off to Chichen Itza.
Yeah.
That was a memorable part for me. Butcher's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, as most fantasy authors are. If you remember back to Summer Night, remember the original knight back then? His name was Ronald Rule, which
Oh,
is
that who was originally killed?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
which the R's, the two J.R.R. Tolkien. You know what the two R's
Oh,
are?
is it Ronald Rule?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I can guess from the context where you were going, but interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. Little deep cut there for you. Thanks, Butcher. Okay.
Hmm.
After Changes Ghost Story. This one's controversial. Some people are like, oh man, all the momentum from the previous book was let down. Other people are like, this is awesome because it was a perspective change and it was appropriate. What did you think?
I'm definitely in the awesome crowd. In fact, I'm gonna put this as my first book in the S tier, which is
Ooh.
probably crazy, but I thought this is like Harry's It's a Wonderful Life almost, where
Yeah.
he's dead and he's like kind of going around and seeing what has happened as a consequence of his death. And we learn at the end of the book that Harry's the one who hired Kincaid to kill him.
Hmm.
Um, and it's I think it's interesting progression for Harry. It makes the rest of the characters a little bit less self-reliant on him. Molly kind of gets level up here because of um, her role as the Ragged Lady, and she's now kind of coming out as after being Harry's apprentice. I start to like her more in this book too.
Although she takes a lot of gut punches, like the fact that she was the one like carrying that knowledge
Oh
around.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily right for Harry to do it, but it was, I don't know. I really liked it, especially I learned also from an interview with Jim Butcher that he wrote that book. He said that was one of his hardest books to write, and he wrote it about his suicide attempt. And so I don't know exactly how it connects. Maybe it has to do with him contemplating his own death and how it
Mm.
would affect those around him. But I think that added a lot of depth to the story in my mind. I thought it was funny how he acts through that the medium, the that one
Oh, Mort.
Mort. At
Yeah.
first, I didn't like him, but I grew to like him as the story went on. And anyways, it was my favorite book up to that point, and I think I said it, and
Mm.
I think that's probably different from a lot of people think. But I really liked that book.
You were a little higher on it than we were. We put it in B tier. I think we were like not hating on it as much as other people have. There's a group of fans that really dislike it, but there's kind of a
Hmm.
lot of weird Dresden fans out there. There's a group of fan that's really into the Harry and Molly ship, even though we've decided that it's weird. So anyway, there's some that really hate Ghost Story, but we were like split on it. We thought it was decent.
And as for the Harry Molly ship, I could see where they're coming from if you just get rid of the awkward Harry Molly in the beginning and how he's always talking about like, I knew that girl from when she was in training bras or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
like he like makes it so I can't accept it anyways. But yeah,
Yeah,
there
their
are a lot
history,
of
the history of their relationship is such that like it would just be
hmm
weird. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't see it.
hmm
Yeah. Okay, Cold Days. I think I just said that this was my favorite, so I'm obviously going S tier with Cold Days. How'd you feel
I wasn't sold on it at the beginning. I think I said it was a little bit cheesy at first, but I definitely liked it at the end. And
with the
I
whole
think,
like dance scene at the Winter
yeah,
Court?
at the ball where he's just like kind of like showing off his new abilities and he's just like freezing people. I thought it was cheesy. I think I mentioned this on the Discord, and I think you said Ben said that was his favorite part, or maybe it was Josh, one of the two.
It was Ben. Yeah, are we just gonna roast Ben's Dresden take?
I think Ben adds a lot of good perspective. You know, he's not just like a Dresden fanboy.
Sure.
And but anyways, I put this in S tier as well. I think that Harry becoming the Winter Knight is super interesting because now he has other roles and responsibilities that he had to opt into to save his daughter, but at times seem to contradict who he is as a person. I liked it.
I loved just the whole plot throughout, and then the mantle switch at the end I thought was brilliant. Molly takes
Yeah.
another. Molly gets done dirty too many times, and this was another one where it's like just as she's kind of like starting to come into herself a little bit in her new role, then bam, now you're the Winter Lady and have to deal with all this new stuff. It's
hmm
rough. But then also
Yeah.
the outsiders become a thing, and so
Oh.
the plot expands more. The epic fantasy is bigger. It's a great book.
hmm Yeah. I liked it a lot too.
Okay, Skin Game, we're up to book 15. This one, I think, has a similar split in the fans along with Ghost Story, where some people are like, oh man, it slowed down a bunch from the epic fantasy binge that we were on, and now it's this like contained heist story. What do you think?
I liked it a lot still. I would put it in A tier for me. It was maybe like low A tier. Um, but it was still a good book to read. It's he's Harry's working on the side of Nicodemus and the Denarians in this book, which is
Mm-hmm.
certainly different from any other book we've had where he's always been working against him.
But
I,
the whole time you're just waiting for the double cross.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're waiting for the double cross, but
which is fine. It makes it fun.
you get to know them a bit more um, intimately, I guess, than you would as just like being the villain,
Yeah.
where now they're uneasy allies. You know, the alliance is going to end, but when will it end and how will it end? And this is also Murphy gets really injured in this story. Oh, well, I had totally forgot, but so Murphy tries to use Fidelia Kiss or the
Uh-huh.
sort of, and she tries to use it in a way that it shouldn't have been used,
Right.
and so it's shattered. And then at the end, Harry throws it to Charity Carpenter, and it like bounces off and then lands exactly into Butters' hand, and Butters becomes the next knight, which isn't something I expected either. And
And
so,
you skipped the most awesome part of what happened there.
um,
The lightsaber, man. It's a
oh yeah,
lightsaber.
yeah, but we don't learn that till the next book.
Okay. Well, but still.
Yeah, it turns into a lightsaber, which is pretty awesome. Um, as a side note, I'm a little bit I get annoyed, I guess, with how much Butcher references Star Wars and Harry calling Molly Padawan, or anyways, that's a side note. Um, so
Not
maybe that took a that
just
might
not
have.
just not a Star Wars fan or just too many.
No, I like Star Wars just fine. I think it was just in too many places for me that I was like, I don't know, maybe it just takes me out of the immersion a little
Mm,
bit from the books or something like that.
okay.
I can't quite put my finger on why I get bothered by all of his Star Wars references, but I
You need
do.
more. You need more like Stormlight Archive references.
Yeah.
Replace some Star Wars.
Hmm.
Okay, so after Skin Game, this is where. So in my first read through, Skin Game was as far as I got because we didn't have Peace Talks and Battleground. In your read through, you were able to experience all 17 straight from the beginning. So you might have a slightly different opinion. But after what, 4 or 5 years, when we came back to it last year, when Peace Talks came out, we were hyped, fans were hyped. And then Peace Talks came out, and people were like, the consensus was that book was all right, but we're waiting for Battleground to form an opinion. Now that Battleground is out, we decided to put Peace Talks in C tier.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would probably put it in B tier myself. It definitely is an incomplete book, and
Yes. Yes, it
it
is.
it just so much setup, and there's not a very satisfying climax to it. It just doesn't feel quite right as a reader.
Hmm.
Um, and fortunately, he came out with Battleground a few months later. I don't know how long it was. Was it 6 months?
No, I think it was July to September. I think it was 2 months.
Okay. So readers didn't have to wait that long for it to be resolved. I think it would be worse if you had to wait like 3 years just to get the end of that story.
That would
So
have been tough.
it didn't bother me as much, maybe because I was just able to jump right into Battleground from Peace Talks, and so it wasn't a huge deal. But I do remember reading it thinking this feels like an incomplete book. And I wasn't too crazy about the storyline between with Thomas trying to assassinate the Svardelf leader.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. It seemed a little bit of an aside to me, like it was underlying this greater conflict, almost like it had been inserted in there in order to provide
Some
some sort of
plot
conflict.
momentum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And so yeah, that's
I
pretty
mean,
much how I felt about that
there
book.
were some payoffs in Battleground for a lot of these things, but the payoffs came a book later, so it's hard to say that Peace Talks was all that great of a book. We added in C tier.
Yeah, and like the whole time Harry's just kind of like pissing off Ebenezer and
Yeah.
Ramirez, and you're like, man, this is just setting up for Harry being expelled from the White Council. And sure enough, that happens at the end of Battleground.
So Battleground itself, we put in S tier. Battleground, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews. Some people were not as high, but I think just for me, all the payoffs and all the action and just the epic fight with Ethneu and everything, it was good stuff. The Battle of the Bean, right? Isn't it, that's what they called it?
I think so. Yeah. Um, I agree. S tier. It's uh, just a lot of exciting things happening. Um, Ethneu was just introduced in Peace Talks, but I thought she was a pretty interesting villain, just consumed by her hatred with that eye that destroyed everyone. And um, we see a lot of like how powerful Ebenezer is, which we haven't really seen. I mean, we know he's called the Black Staff, but it seems like he totally outclasses Harry at this point. Before I would have thought, maybe Harry could take on Ebenezer if he had to, but Harry seems totally outclassed by him. And the Murphy being killed was sad. It was I keep saying totally unexpected. I like things that I don't expect that
So
take
you weren't
place.
so you weren't expecting it because I know a lot of fans going into it were thinking that Murphy was going to die. It wasn't actually super surprising that it happened. I think mostly
Hmm.
because of all like the Valkyrie foreshadowing with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that. I guess I just didn't look into too many theories because I was reading them back to
Mm,
back to back. So I didn't really have any time to speculate on what would happen. I did mention in our Discord that I was kind of at this point I was fed up with. I feel like Harry and not Molly and Murphy would just always go back and forth where Harry's like, I don't want you to come on this trip. And Murphy's like, you're an idiot. I can make my own decisions. And Harry's like, you know what? You're right. You can make your own decisions. Come on, let's go. And
okay.
it had just happened so many times. And it happened again in Battleground. Except this time she was like, you know what? Fine, I'll stay here. And then later on, she's like, nope, I'm coming. And then she gets killed, not by anything supernatural, but by Rudy. And so the it was well set up. I think that despite all of the threats, all of the supernatural threats which Harry and Murphy had faced, um, and despite Murphy's always strictly adhering to the law, maybe that had kind of waned a bit in later books, but she had always been like, I'm not
Hmm.
going to kill a human being without like due process.
Hmm.
Um, she's ends up being killed by law enforcement, which was,
Yeah.
I think, ironic. It was well
Tough,
set up.
tough to swallow as the reader.
hmm
Yeah.
It was tough to swallow, but like her death also wasn't super heroic, like other people might say. In my mind, like she just killed that Jordan. Is that what it is?
Jotun giant thing.
Jotun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kills that with the bazooka, which is awesome. But then she kind
Yeah.
of dies senselessly to
Right.
Rudy.
Right. So popular theory is obviously that she's coming back.
hmm
What do you think?
It would be hard for me to see the series where she doesn't come back, I
That's what I
guess.
think. Yeah.
It just for her to die so like matter of factly to Rudy and um for her not to come back in some way. I think that Guard has already she some people were thinking that she would come back as what are those like Viking warriors called that
The Valkyries.
no, not the Valkyries. The ones that come back after they're dead, who
Oh yeah.
after the
Um,
memory of them has died. Something with an S, I think. I don't know.
I can't pronounce the name. Yeah, okay.
But
Continue.
basically, but basically, they say, or Guard says that she can't come back as that until the memory of her has died. Like nobody remembers her anymore. But she hasn't really said we don't know how Valkyries come to be in this. I think Valkyries are distinct and different from those other Viking warriors.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we may be butchering the theory a little bit to yeah,
Well,
little pun there.
yeah.
But let us know if you're watching and can inform us, please.
hmm
Yeah. One theory that I've heard is that they will somehow remove people's memories of Murphy in order to get around that, and then she will come back. I kind of like the idea. You know how at the end of Pirates of the Caribbean, when Will and Elizabeth can still be together, but only on, like very restricted terms because of what he has turned into there as Davy Jones.
Yeah.
We could see something similar, like Murphy's back, but Harry and her can't necessarily like be together as mortals, but they can in some other way that like is still fulfilling, but also still kind of tragic. I think
hmm
that could be a good way to go.
Something that something that maintains the severity of death, but
Yeah,
like it doesn't just kind of wipe away all the consequences like, oh, Murphy's back and we can love each other again. Just
right.
basically like normal. Um, and I hope that if she does come back though, it levels her up so that she's more on Harry's level. Because like although she's a competent like martial artist
Hmm.
and she's just nowhere near on the same level as Denarian who can do who knows what with magic
Yeah,
or transform.
you're tired of having her be left behind just because she's immortal.
Yeah, I feel like it's at this point it's become a bit forced with like how competent she is. Like she's always like trying to prove like, oh, look how fast and how good of a fighter I am. I can like show you like all of a sudden I have a gun pointed at your head, and I don't know. It just seemed a little bit forced to me. There's no real way to keep her strong enough to keep up with Harry
Mhm.
unless through some supernatural means.
Okay, so we went through all the books. I know you had a few other talking points that you wanted to some takeaways from your read through.
Where'd you guys put the short stories?
Short stories, we put briefcases as an A and side jobs as a C.
Which one
Like,
was
well,
first?
side jobs is the first one. Briefcases is the one that had the Zude story and the Bigfoot stories
Yeah,
and the Marcone story
de-
and the Molly stories.
I definitely agree with both of those. I was gonna put briefcases at an A and side jobs probably at a C or a low C, maybe a high D. Um, but I much preferred the stories in briefcases.
Those were fun. I actually hadn't read those until after Battleground, which I had been informed a lot of times that that was a huge mistake. So I apologize to all the Dresden fans because there were a few things that I missed in Peace Talks because I hadn't read the short stories.
Hmm.
That's obviously my bad. But going back and reading them was rewarding as well because then I could see how they actually connected.
Yeah.
Huh.
So some of the things that my major takeaways from reading the Dresden series, number one, just Jim Butcher's progression as an author. I think it's inspiring where he started out, that he was able to get a publishing deal on
Mm-hmm.
a book like Stormfront. Once again, I don't think very highly of it, but how far he's come, both improvements in writing and plotting, and how he has expanded this world in such great ways. I think my ratings show that I wasn't like definitely at the beginning I wasn't sold on the series, but I think my ratings steadily improved in which um, three my S's were all the last most recent books were kind of like A's and S's. Um, and
Sounds like
so
we need to make a how it started, or yeah, the meme, it's like how it started and then how it's going for Butcher.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So I think that it's when I heard like urban fantasy, it never really appealed to me as a reader, but Dresden Files has pulled it off in a way that I really like. Um,
Because it's not really urban fantasy by the end. That's my opinion. It's epic fantasy disguised as urban fantasy.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that because of how fast paced the books are. It's just like boom, 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 and that you're at the end of the book. Whereas if it was epic fantasy, you just have so much inner dialogue,
Okay.
investigation, just a lot of more sandwich in between that slows the pace of
Uh,
the book down, but still, I don't know. I mean,
what if we
I,
said, what if we said the 17 books were like five epic fantasy books just spaced out into separate books?
but I mean, there's yeah, maybe okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Um, I I mean, I think that the series feels well put together, but I wonder how much of this Butcher actually had planned out. Um, when he initially
Right.
wrote the book
Right.
in his class, it's like you can't have had all through Battlegrounds planned out. And if he didn't have it all planned out, then he's able to um, weave it together pretty well. I think that Ben definitely sees some parts where maybe it wasn't as well put together. I do agree with him that Maggie might have been, he definitely wasn't planning Maggie from the beginning. And it was just a little bit surprising when all of a sudden she was inserted into the story with that intro and changes.
I would be interested if I had a chance to talk to him to ask him just that kind of like candidly,
Hmm.
how much of this did you plan out from the beginning? How many things, like I'm sure that he left some things as a kind of open dangling thread. So he's like, oh, okay, later in the series, I can grab this and use it. I mean, like Elaine was an example that we pointed to,
Yeah.
and maybe he decided not to pick up on, but the Outsiders obviously were one that he did pick up on and make into a bigger thing. So,
Hmm.
that it would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Um, so I feel like the writing isn't anything amazing. My cat's about to break something in the background. I just know it. Um, the writing isn't anything amazing, but Butcher is so good at getting people to connect emotionally to the characters that he writes that it makes up for it. In a lot of ways, I almost feel like being able to write emotions well is better than being able to write well. Um,
To do the prose masterfully,
yeah,
getting the inner dialogue, getting the emotional weight of things. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you.
like
There was some parts in Dresden that like legit have made me fairly emotional. Like I wrote a personal blog post about one passage from Dresden about like different types of pain, and yeah,
mhm.
I really love the series for that reason.
Once again, going back to the fact that he wrote was inspired by his suicide attempt, it shows that he channels, I think, his own emotional turmoil into the stories, which makes it feel more real. And that's probably not something that's easy to do, or talk about for that matter. Um, but I think it makes the stories feel more meaningful. The
Agreed.
next thing, which is I guess a bit at odds with that, the humor was very off and on for me. Sometimes I found myself like smiling, which and maybe like once or twice, like oh great, doing a general chuckle. Sorry, my cat is just up to no good.
Yeah,
Um,
classic Mister, right?
yeah, classic Mister. Um, there were a lot of time. I think there were more times where I was just like, that's not funny. Um, and so I I don't know. I maybe Jim Butcher and I just don't necessarily have the same sense of humor, but it didn't discourage me from enjoying the book that
Hmm.
much. So I mean, overall, I would consider myself a big Dresden Files fan, as much as I was skeptical of it in the beginning. But the humor did, but I wasn't always into it.
Yeah, humor and epic fantasy or urban fantasy is
Mhm.
it's a bit hit or miss. I mean, we're big Stormlight fanboys, but is sharding funny? I don't know.
um,
I say no.
yeah, I think that Sanderson humor definitely has some off moments for me too, where I'm like, that's not that funny.
Yeah.
Um, as far as I think Steven, both you and I can agree that romantic subplots are both pretty
Oh
where
yes.
they can make or break a story.
I
And
will if a fantasy book has awesome if a fantasy book has a romantic plot that is halfway decent, I will read it.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a sucker for that.
um, and and so I kind of thought I knew where it was going with Murphy. I thought that their friendship would just blossom into a romance that would last
Hmm.
through the series. But obviously, like when it finally does blossom, it's cut off pretty quickly. And it just makes me think back to when the death curse is uttered at Harry that says, die alone. And I know he had that one conversation, I think maybe with Michael Carpenter, where maybe Michael says, well, we all die alone. Like the moment you die, you go into the next life alone. So of
Hmm.
course you're gonna die alone. I don't know if I buy it with how like his romantic life has gone so far with him
So
killing.
you're not interpreting the death and changes as fulfilling that death curse.
No, I don't. I mean, why would that?
Well, he died.
But he didn't really. He didn't actually die.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
So and I mean Susan is so he kills Susan. He Lucio, his romance with Lucio, I mean it wasn't really like a full blown romance. It was kind of short lived, but that
Hmm.
ended because she had been her mind had been manipulated. Now
Tragically, he was unable to get together with Molly.
tragically, well, we haven't seen the end of that. Um,
Dude, hopefully not.
Murphy is tragically killed. She may come back. I'm not saying she won't. Um,
So now it's
now
Lara, right? We're going for Lara.
now it's Lara, which I couldn't see like any other author writing a romance with Lara. There's always kind of been some sort of like physical attraction between
Uh-huh.
them, at least certainly for from Harry for
I
Lara.
mean, she's hot. She's like the hottest woman in the world, right?
Yeah. Um, I don't know if where it's gonna go. Maybe they could get married. I don't think it's gonna work out, but Jim Butcher, I could you
Well,
never know
she
with Jim.
she shouldn't even be able to touch him, right? Because he was with Murphy
Right.
as his like true love previously.
Yeah, unless something
Yeah, there's always
through
something that could.
well, yeah, throughout the next year, who knows? A lot could happen in 12 months, which is the title of the next book.
Mm,
Um, I think that like with how adamant Ebenezer has been, like you can't trust vampires. Like you don't know them as well as I do. Like I've lived a lot longer than you have.
hmm.
There's going to be something with White Court vampires that proves Ebenezer right. I don't know if it's going to be Lara or it's going to be Thomas, but it's going to be something. I think
Mm.
one of them is going to prove Ebenezer right, and one of them is going to prove him wrong.
I feel like there's no way we're doing Thomas dirty yet again. Like this dude has been through way too much. We're gonna redeem Thomas somehow. I don't know that he even needs to be redeemed. We're just gonna like rescue him or right? Like
Yeah,
eh.
I don't know. He like went bad for like the end of a book, and then he was kind of back to normal almost.
Yeah. I like Thomas a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I like him, but it's something there's going to be some consequences for Harry sticking him in the island, and then um and this Justine with Nemesis,
Mhm.
like I don't know if Harry's gonna end up having to kill Justine or Nemesis kills Justine somehow, and then Thomas wakes up and realizes that Harry didn't save Justine, and he's just gonna
Mhm.
be super mad at Harry. Anyways,
And we've got the Edward Cullen baby brewing.
that's true. I didn't even remember that. Um,
One of my favorite theories is the whole demon reach thing. Like that's such a big Chekhov's gun, in my opinion. Saying like, "Hey, Harry, here's this island that's a prison to the most horrible creatures imaginable, and by the way, you're in charge of it." It's like,
yeah.
okay, there's gonna be a prison break. Something terrible is gonna happen here.
Well, and we learned at the end of Battleground that Harry could like somehow use like Ethnio like because Harry thinks, well, it's probably a stupid idea, but I could call upon her if I needed to.
Which, yeah, okay, okay. So he could be tempted to do that and then probably not be able to control it because there's just, I don't know, too much power to try to harness there.
Yeah, or he makes some sort of deal with an entity there that has unknown consequences.
Seems like a Harry Dresden move.
Hmm. Um, so some of my favorite theories right off the bat that Harry is a descendant of Merlin.
Yeah.
I think that's why um, Margaret Le Fay, Harry's mom, sought out his dad who was just kind of like an ordinary guy, just like a magician of just like your standard magician with pulls a rabbit out of a hat type guy.
Mhm.
I think that she somehow found out, or the White Council somehow found out that he was Merlin's descendant, and so that's why they had her have a baby with him that ended up being Harry.
Hmm.
Um, the other interesting theory that I heard, I think from maybe Legendarium podcast, was that at one point when Harry's going through, like he's looking at some of the inmates of Demon Reach, there's one that like is just kind of like quiet, keeps to himself, and like Harry like goes up to interact with him, and the guy's like, just leave me alone, I belong in here. Some people think that might be Merlin, like the Merlin.
Hmm.
Um, that's interesting. Elaine, I thought she was gonna play a much larger role in the series up to this point. I don't think she's just, I don't know, she just plays such a integral, she's such an integral part of Harry's past that she's gotta have, and she's also Starborn. Maybe she's,
You don't
I,
see.
I,
Okay, so she's gonna come back and prove us wrong. She's gonna be her plot line's gonna be redeemed by Butcher.
I like, yeah. So the theory that I like is the whole cowl is Justin Demorne,
Hmm.
and that I forget his assistant's name, but she's Elaine in disguise.
Hmm. Oh, the other Camelorite assistant thing. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cowl's another one we haven't seen for several books now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. When is the last time we saw him? I can't remember. Anyways,
Yeah,
um,
man, there's a lot of details, and I know every time we do these podcasts, we forget the details, and people like to fill us in. So, yeah, let us know.
yeah. I'm really interested to see what happens in 12 months, but even after that, mirror, mirror, we'll see what
So,
goes on in that.
it seems like you know a little bit more than I do about the future of Dresden because he changed the ordering of the next
Well,
books.
that's really all I know, is that the next book will be 12 months, and then Mirror Mirror is the book after that, which means that, so 12 months is 18, which is a multiple of 3,
The
which
multi, yeah, are the multiple of three things still in effect? At this point, it's
I
like
don't know.
every book has everyone, so I don't know if it's as much of a thing.
Um, but we know that like Lara plays a large part in it, so the White Court is going to be a large part of it.
I feel like I could be convinced to ship Lara, but that might just be because she's super hot.
But she this is the same person who is keeping like the fairies at like the small people as or the little people, as like she was imprisoning them, and who knows how many people she's fed on and killed, and she's got some iffy things that would have to be worked out in major ways in
she
order
she
for.
she seems to have a soft side, a little bit of a some emotions that she opens up a little
or
bit with
or
Dresden.
or is she using that to appear soft? I mean, she's pretty old, and we know that the White Council is pretty devious. So
Hmm,
I think she could easily play to Harry's protective nature of like women and children.
there is that. All right, Ryan, to close, tell me your favorite non Harry Dresden character. So I guess favorite side character from the series.
Oh, wow. I think I'm gonna have to go with Marcone.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Oh,
No, I'm agreeing with you. That was an agreeing grunt.
okay. Yeah, I think that Marcone is interesting. He has his own code of honor, and so he makes these decisions which benefit people, like they benefit himself, but in general they usually benefit Chicago too. Like he's obviously a bad guy, and now he has taken up the Thorn of Namshiel coin, but if anybody's a match for a Denarian, I feel like it's Marcone. So
I'm really excited to see some Marcone Nicodemus
yeah,
interactions. Yeah.
I don't think Marcone is just going to fall in line with whatever
Oh
Nicodemus
no.
wants.
Certainly not. No.
Um, so going to be cool. I think that he's been a cool character so far, and it's going to be cool to see where he goes. A lot of people theorize that Marcone is the big bad of the Dresden Files,
Mm.
where he's going to be the ultimate person that Harry will have to overcome.
So
Which,
they've been frenemies for a long time. So the theory is that he will actually drop the friend part and just become the enemy.
yeah, I mean, we saw in both his short story, Marcone's short story, where he thinks like this conflict will eventually come to a head and
Hmm.
somebody's gonna, one of them's gonna kill the other. And I think Harry's thought the same thing in Battleground, where like they can't continue to coexist. So it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes.
So if I had to choose a favorite, I might have chosen Marcone. Since you did, I'm now between Thomas and Michael, and I'm gonna go with Michael because man, he's such a solid guy. Like
Yeah.
such a great guy. And he's got so many sides to him. He's not perfect. I love the part is it in Peace Talks where Harry talks to him and tells him what's going on with the White Council and he just starts cussing up a storm.
That's at the end of Battleground.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. The very end of Battleground. Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. Yes. He's got so many facets to him. Like he's not just the perfect white knight. He's the humanized white knight, and yet he's such an awesome guy, and he's raised his family in the midst of all of this, and his family themselves are awesome. Like his wife Charity is no pushover herself.
Hmm.
He slayed a little. He slayed a dragon, right, to win Charity's hand. I want to know that backstory. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all in
He,
on Michael.
he is a cool character. He would probably be up there for me too. Yeah.
I loved when in Skin Game Butcher kind of brought him back at least for the duration of the mission, restored his physical abilities there. So
Hmm.
that was nice. I hope. I mean, I'm sure Michael seems like he's kind of now in more of like the mentor category for Harry. Might not be in the action hardly at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was also really good seeing him in the Christmas Eve short story at the end of Battleground, where he's now more than just become who he goes to about like supernatural problems, and he's now like viewing Michael as sort of a role model, as a father, what a father should be like.
All right. Any last words for Dresden? I guess we're eagerly awaiting 12 months.
Yeah,
But
I
we might have to be patient. I know it seems like Butcher's kind of like back onto a better schedule since he's had some personal trials.
hmm
But I know he's also writing the steampunk series, the Aeronauts Windlass, that
oh
series.
yeah,
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 I man, I haven't read those, but I just hope he focuses on Dresden.
yeah. What I mean, he wrote Codex Alera alongside Dresden, right?
I don't remember. But yeah, he must have. And those first Dresden books, he was just pumping out. So yeah.
He has it in him, but you know, as long as he doesn't pull a Rothfuss or George R. R. Martin, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in Jim Butcher. I mean, look, I know that there was a long delay between Skin Game and Peace Talks, but in that time, he produced three books. He wrote the Aeronauts Windlass, and Peace Talks and Battleground were two separate books. So 3 books in 5 years is like that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm definitely a Dresden Files fan now. I can consider myself that.
All right. So 4 out of the 5 Phantology contributors are current on the Dresden Files. We just have to work on Jake. Jake is stubbornly not going to convert over to Dresden Files because he can't get over the initial hump. It's all about getting over the initial few books that are just a little bit slower because then it gets awesome.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough, but I think if he sets his mind to it, he can do it. There's just so many other books out there to read.
TBR lists are not getting any shorter.
Nope.
Okay, Ryan, this was fun. I'm glad that you are current, and it was fun for me to revisit the series because since Battleground came out and then I read the short stories, it's been a few months now since I've been invested in Dresden, so it's nice to hop back in.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. If you like Phantology, you can find more at www.phantologybooks.com and find our YouTube channel. There's links on the episode description and on the website. And please subscribe. Help us get up to get our plaque, right? We need our 1,000 follower plaque. And then if you want to support the show even more, you can do that at patreon.com/phantology_books. Okay, Ryan, until next time, what are you reading now? Tell everyone what you're reading now that you're done with Dresden.
Well, I just finished the Wild. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember.
The Kings of the Wild. I'll help you out.
The Kings of the Wild book, which I wasn't super impressed with it, but I'll talk more about that probably with Josh. And I'm currently reading Children of Time, which is by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is a sci-fi book that Jake has finished. And so I'm working with Jake to help boost our sci-fi repertoire a little bit.
Thank you. We desperately need more sci-fi books.
Yeah.
Yes. If we want to call ourselves an SFF podcast, we need more of the first S and F.
Well, we're Phantology, not science fictionology.
That's true. Yeah. Tell Jake that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next time.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Phantology. If you'd like to let us know your opinions on all things sci-fi and fantasy, join our Discord. Invites are in the episode descriptions below. If you'd like to support the show, like these fine folks here, you can do that at patreon.com/phantology_books. Patrons get early access to new episodes, exclusive postings, and exclusive Discord benefits. But of course, just listening and watching and sharing with your friends and family is support enough. Journey before destination all.